Hi, welcome to MTMscratch, a podcast about artists and the art they make. I'm Jordan Burt, and recently I had the chance to sit down with Drew Mantia ahead of the release of Feel Good Music 2, which drops April 20th. Aside from an impressive list of features and production credits, Drew is just a really positive and chill guy. Stay tuned for after the interview for some exciting announcements. So, without further ado, this is Drew Mantia on MTMscratch. Enjoy. Yeah.
Who is Drew Mantia? He is a musician originally from St. Louis that moved to Kansas City, spent 6 years living in Chicago, and just moved back to his hometown of St. Louis. And I'm sure you've got some where we can get deeper from there, but he, as I talk about myself in the third person, since a lot of your people listening to this are going to be rappers and whatnot, I suppose I should say that he is a music producer for the Palmer Squares and Prop Cause and the various cool collaborations and things that have happened because of those artists. Yeah, I'll start there.
Well, you already answered half my questions. Yeah, I kind of just like putting people on the spot with that first question. It's kind of odd. So where'd you get your start in music?
I went from the womb, according to my mom, just loved music. From birth until like 6 years old, I had a cassette single of I Had the Time of My Life from the Dirty Dancing soundtrack. And I would listen to it, rewind it back, listen to it. I had like a little, those little, I mean, maybe you don't know. I don't know how old all of our listeners are here, but we used to have these little cassette players that were like toy cassette players that had like a handle, and they were all like colorful, for kids, and a crappy little speaker in it. And I had one of those, and I would just play that song to the end, play it back like 10 times, and then maybe every 10th time I would flip it over, listen to the B-side. I don't even remember what the B-side was, and then flip it back over and start all over again. And I don't know, I don't know what it was about that song, but it was really. And from there, I was just listening to like R&B and pop radio, and then in my preteens and early teens, I got really into hip hop. In high school, I got into rock, and then by the end of the high school, I got into funk and blues and jazz and soul. But really just the power of song just caught me from the jump. Like, I didn't have any family members that were musicians or really knew anybody in my community. My parents made me go to church, and there was an old guy at the church that played piano, and and he certainly wasn't inspiring to me. So that was my biggest exposure to live music and the idea of creating music myself. I felt so drawn to it that I just had to start doing it and start cracking the code of how to create my own songs. So from the jump, making albums and making recordings was the thing. Because I also, the same day that I picked up a guitar, I picked up a crappy tape recorder, and I wrote some crappy song with just like open strings. And so recording and music have always been hand in hand to me. But I don't know, it was just natural, I think, the attraction to it.
Do you think you were influenced by starting in like the analog age instead of like
Yeah,
folks?
I'm just at that cusp. Like we got internet in my house when I was 12, so I got to live this nice, meaty chunk of my life without the internet, and that had a big influence. Growing up, I didn't really start for real making music until I was 14. I was already interested from the beginning. And it, I can't call it a regret because I don't regret anything, but like, for lack of a better term, in the past, I would have said that I regretted not starting with music earlier, because I already described to you how my draw to it was from birth, but I didn't really convince my parents to get me a guitar until I was 14. But yeah, so then at that point, home recording with computers was definitely starting, but it wasn't as ubiquitous and affordable as it is now. So my recordings started on, little 4-track recorders that recorded to cassette tape, Tascam. I geeked out because I saw in an Instagram story, Saba had bought one, and he's been like running his drums through this little Tascam 4-track cassette recorder. And that's where I started with recordings. And then later in high school, I moved on to a digital 8-track recorder, which is still like a all-in-one unit, still not on a computer. So it wasn't until really college, like I was like 19 years old before I ever recorded anything to a computer. So I think that definitely had an effect on me, probably in that I'm much more, I hope it comes off in my production and in my songs, that like I'm a musician. I'm a trained musician, which, I mean, that doesn't really matter. You don't need training to be a musician, but like I have a 4-year college degree, Bachelor of Music degree. Like I'm trained in things. So back when, using a cassette recorder, using a digital 8-track, it was, it wasn't about making loops and programming beats. It was, I had to play everything, and I had to play, at the times, beats weren't even like an idea. I did, by the end of high school, get a drum machine and started there. So like I said, it wasn't computer based, but I was in bands. I was playing in funk and soul bands and pop bands and rock bands, and, recording with other musicians. And then when I first started getting paid to produce music, it was for funk bands in St. Louis and reggae bands and stuff like that. It wasn't rap, and it wasn't beats, So I think that when I got into being more of a beat producer, I bring a more of a musician's mindset. Like, not that I'm saying you're not a musician if you just started with a piece of software, but like, I make beats, but like my starting point wasn't like FL.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think FL did exist at the time, but like that's not where I was at.
I was actually just going to ask that. When do you think you made that transition from being, well, I guess from recording music to producing music?
Well, I mean, like I said, I was first, like, by the time I was 19, I was producing myself. I had from the time I was about like 18 to 21, I had a record deal with a startup label out of St. Louis that is defunct by now. But they took a swing at it, and they funded my studio time and everything. So I was like 19, working in a fairly decent studio, and they, since it was a little indie outfit and things were pretty flexible, they let me produce my own records. So I was, 19, 20, 21 in the studio, working with musicians, working with an engineer, and producing the recording of my music and my band. And I was in music school, and other musicians heard those recordings and were like, well, obviously we know you know music because we're in music school with you and we play with you. And, according to your album, you know how to produce recordings too. So, will you work on ours? So other bands started asking me to produce theirs. When it became beats and hip hop and stuff, that was really, I moved to Chicago in 2012. Proud Cause was one of the first people I met. And, pretty quickly, like the first, I think, fall that I was there, we recorded LSD with Chance the Rapper. And that was basically, that is the pivotal point that took me from having any sort of that's where any sort of notoriety I first had originated from. And that's also what turned me from a producer of bands and stuff to a beat producer. Because that was all kind of an accident. LSD was, if anybody doesn't know what I'm talking about, you should check out a song. It's by Prob Cause featuring Chance the Rapper, produced by me, LSD. We did this like 5 years before Jamila Woods put Chance on a song also called LSD. And anyway, that was originally, they didn't end up getting much credit at the end of the day, but there's this band called Pet Conspiracy out of Hong Kong, and I'm not sure what they're up to these days. But back then in 2012, I was just trying to do interesting stuff, and I was reaching out to people over the internet, and I reached out to, I forget where I found them in the first place, but I reached out to this band Pet Conspiracy in Hong Kong, and they sent me some vocals to work with, which is what the crazy hook on LSD is, where, it's like weird broken English, and they're saying, and they sent me this crazy hook about doing LSD. At the time, I had not done LSD, by the way, and I didn't do LSD for another like 4 years after that. Now I think it's the shit. And after having done it, I'm like, oh, I did a pretty good job with that song. But anyway, at the time, I had not done it. But anyway, I took their hook and I made a beat under their hook because that's what I thought production was. I'm like, production is you ask me to make a song and then we get together and we make a song from scratch. So then we make the song, and Chance came in to do another song with Prob Cause called 3-Course Meal, which is Prob Cause, Action Bronson, and Chance the Rapper. Actually, the first time that Chance and Action worked together, even predating Nana from Acid Rap. So Prob Cause is really plugging it. And when he came in to do that song, a lot of times when you do that, the artist is like, hey, let me show you other stuff I'm working on. He played Chance LSD, and Chance is like, I want to hop on that right now. And which was super cool. And that's, how that came into fruition. And then, Chance and I exchanged numbers. We were in contact some, and he texted me and said he's working on a mixtape, Acid Rap, and which I didn't know it was called Acid Rap at the moment, but that's what it became. And he asked me to send him beats, and I didn't have any beats because I was not a beat producer. I was, I'm a producer like fucking George Martin and, Quincy Jones. Like, we get in the studio together and we build something with real instruments and blah, blah, blah. That's just kind of what my mindset was. But after, seeing what happened with LSD and Acid Rap, and like the fact that if I had good beats on deck, I could have potentially been on Acid Rap. So it's like kind of dropping the ball on that was like, oh, maybe I should work on my beats every day. And from that point is when I started making ideas every day and, realizing, and then I really only embraced within like the past year that like, this is now and the future, like that being a producer has changed. And it's like, take the term literally, producer. It's my job to produce. I'm a producer of songs and ideas. So it's like now I am generating those ideas every day so that, then I could have an idea and I'm like, oh, this would be a great beat to pitch here, or this would be great for me to sing on, or whatever. Or if someone asks me for beats, like if I had the chance again to have someone like Chance the Rapper ask me for beats, I got beats. So so to recap the timeline, in the, about 2005 is when I started producing for other artists. And like 2013 is the pivot point where I went from producer of mostly bands to producer of rappers and singers, beat type production.
Yeah. So since you made that transition, I guess what would you call your style? I tried to listen to most artists' catalog before I have them
Yeah.
on the show, and I was really drawing a blank. There was a very distinct style, but I couldn't really nail down a genre.
I've always had that problem where it is because I'm so interested in putting everything I have into a track that it is hard to nail down an exact genre. But like when people ask, I call it feel good music, and that is something that's why the feel good music album series started. That was born out of, even before I was doing the beat production, when I was, on stage performing and singing with my old band in the, uh, or like 2004, 2005 area and beyond, people would come up to me and be like, you make feel good music. Like your music just feels so good. And I heard that so many times that and that was really the intent anyway. So I really embraced that. And so, my initial answer is feel good music. Now I can break it down a little more in genre terms. Like I blend, soulful gospel style keyboards and chord progressions and guitars with, hip hop drums and house drums, depending on what tempo I'm at. Because I've, in the past 4 or 5 years, gotten really interested in dance music as well. But I blend the soulful stuff with hip hoppy drums or really these days, trappy drums or dance drums. And that's really like the very basis of it. But I mean, there's also elements of jazz to it for sure, and R&B and pop. And, a lot of it is really, it depends. The vocalists on it kind of will finalize like the real genre that we're going to try and call it, because it's like you put Palmer Square's vocals on one of my beats, and now it's hip hop. It's feel good hip hop, soulful hip hop, on uplifting hip hop. It's like you put my vocals on there, and now it's like a pop or a dance track. I work with like some R&B singers where it's like you put them on one of my beats, and now it's an R&B beat. So it's really those blended things, and I really try and make almost any track something that a rapper or a singer could be on for the most part, so it's like they can go a lot of ways. So
And that
yeah,
brings up a good point.
feel good music, baby.
You mentioned like trying to define genres, and you mentioned like the BPM on, let's say a house beat. Like I think it's like 128 BPM.
Yep,
But
yep.
most genres don't have that. Like that brings up a real. I don't know. There's definitely an issue categorizing things. Feel good music makes sense, honestly.
Yeah, well, I've also I was never part of how I developed that sound was I was not interested in genres. Like it didn't like I only really learned my genres within like the past 9 months or something, which sounds like a really weird thing to say, but I'll elaborate, which is to say, like, I at least now when I make something, I'm thinking about in the creation and afterwards how to categorize it, because I want to be able to communicate to people what it is. You have to categorize it for people. You got to categorize it for streaming sites. You have to, if you want to do advertising, you got to be able to categorize who you sound like and what genre you are. So I've made a much tighter effort to do that these days, to where like even if it's always going to be a blend of stuff, but it's like at least I'm trying to kind of nail it in more where I can say like, that's a house track, that's a hip hop track, that's an R&B track. It's, but yeah, I wasn't interested in the past in genres, but now like I can tell you, I mean, I legit studied this stuff like in the past year where I can like actually kind of tell you now, like, you know, what are the different types of EDM and the different types of hip hop and like the subgenres and stuff. I'm way better at that stuff now, but like, yeah, when I was developing my sound, genre just wasn't even a concern.
Before this interview, I listened to Feel Good Music again and a lot of your other work, and then Feel Good Music too. And
Yeah,
I
I
really
hit you with
found.
the preview link.
Oh wait, what was that?
I said hit you with the preview link.
Oh yeah, good looks. Thank you. Um, but I'd say like some of the hallmarks of your production style are really rich textures and like lots of warmth. Um, so what would you call your most representative work, or like if you stopped producing music tomorrow, what would be your like magnum opus?
I think it's still LSD. I think that I mean I've produced a whole slew of songs that have meant more to me, but it's just kind of the genesis of everything that's happened since has been that song. Like I said, I told you how it pivoted me into becoming more of a beat producer. It, solidified my, now like 7-year relationship with Prob Cause as an engineer and a producer. It led for me to work with other people like that I've worked with, like Palmer Squares and Saba, and on the Chicago scene. So it really opened up that. It accidentally birthed my personal songwriting project that I started within the past couple years, and am finally gonna actually really do something with this year. Going to start releasing more songs with this summer, and we're on Feel Good Music too as well. So hopefully that'll be some people's first introduction. Some people, we have had stuff out, so hopefully some people have heard some of that. But that is a duo between myself and my longtime friend Ryan Marquez, who I've been making music with for like 13, 14 years. And the belief cycle formula was accidentally birthed there, which is like something that's kind of got a dance music feel, like a little bit of electronic feel, but that's also soulful. And Ryan played some of the keyboards on that song. And basically like now that I'm in St. Louis, which is a whole nother thing we could get into, I don't know what questions you got on deck. But now that I'm in St. Louis, we're, working together, writing things from scratch every day. But when we first started this belief cycle thing, I was living in Chicago and he was living in St. Louis. And, it was, the initial thing was more of like my beats. I would make a basic beat, and come up with lyrics, and he would pimp it out with his keyboards. And that's a system that we developed with LSD. And also sometimes my good friend Charlie Serpa plays sax, and he played the sax solo at the end of LSD. He also went on, he's the horn player on Smoke and Fuck, from Junkyard Samurai, Prob Cause and the Palmer Squares, and some other things. And so I think that we've got stuff. I guess the only thing that LSD misses is like my voice and my songwriting, because that's where I started, was as a songwriter. And now a lot more people know me as a producer, and it's part of my mission to, starting this year, change that perception a little bit. That I come from a place where I was, the little bit of following that I had and stuff, I was well regarded for my lyrical work and for my vocal work. So taking a back seat as just an instrumental force for these other vocalists is something that I don't intend to stop doing, but I'm much more picky about it now, because like I wasn't there was something missing for me a couple years ago, and I was like, man, I put down my voice. It's like I want to make music with my voice. And when that came to me, it felt natural to pick up with the LSD sound as the sound I was going to go forward with, because I wanted to make more music like that, and I felt like I could make lyrical ideas with that sound too. So semi-begrudgingly, I am going to say LSD. I mean, there's stuff coming up that I think is better, and that I think that now that it has my voice on it, like there's some collaborations coming up that have like my voice on it and rappers on it on the same track that I'm known for working with, that have my feel good production style. So I think that when that stuff comes out, I think that will be like the best, like one-stop shop for trying to hear everything I do in one spot. But in the meantime, I think that I gotta go with LSD.
I mean, solid choice. I've heard a lot of your newer stuff. I actually
Yeah.
didn't know that was by you until recently. Um, but yeah, that's some incredible production, I think. Um, so it seems like your career kind of almost went in reverse. I know Chance the Rapper wasn't Chance the Rapper when you started producing for him,
Mm-hmm.
but you kind of started with Chance and Prob Cause, which is like an incredible first venture
Mm-hmm.
into hip hop, and now you're moving away to sort of like start your own band and stuff. It seems very kind of flipped.
Yeah, it does. There's the best thing that I could say. I think that we all need to do what satisfies us. And there are always going to be temptations like money and comfort and fame and things like that. And, you know, we have to make sacrifices to really, sorry if I'm being really slow here, because I just want to answer this well. I have the answer within me. I'm just slowly bringing it out so I do it right. We all, should look to satisfy that. And so for me, like I said, I started as the vocalist and producer, and I kind of accidentally got caught up in this whirlwind where, I mean, I landed in Chicago at just the right moment where Chief Keef was popping off and Chance was popping off, and there was so much energy around the music scene. And even for me, being like very loosely, tangentially tied to that situation, like just having collaborated with Chance and stuff like that. It was really exciting. It was really magical, and it caught people's attention. And before I knew it, I had all this work as a hip hop producer, and it was all kind of an accident. And I kind of got complacent and lazy because I could have the whole time continued to be a songwriter in my own right as well. But I was like, you know what? The bills are getting paid. People are listening to these songs. I've got an exposure to a whole new fan base. And I like doing this. So fuck it. I'll just sit back and do this production and do my engineering and mixing sessions. But after some years of that, it was just like something was missing for me, and I made a lot of changes in my life. And one of the things that was missing was I wanted to put my voice to work again, and I wanted to get back to performing. I come from a performance background, and I have done some tours with like Palmer Squares and Prob Cause, doing like drum pads and stuff like that. So I was doing some performing, but for the most part, once I got to Chicago and I got integrated into that music scene, and even especially that hip hop scene, like me singing and writing lyrics and performing live almost 100% went out the window. So, yeah, so I could I think a lot of people would have, having like a Chance the Rapper credit under their belt, and like Prob Cause and I went on to also like collaborate with Twista and Saba, and I have my own song with Saba as well. And I've also, engineering wise, I recorded Palmer Square's song with Saba and, mixed Palmer Squares and Watsky and Prob Cause and Lil Dicky and all that stuff, the Prob Cause Chance Action Bronson track. So I think a lot of people in that position would have gone really hard hitting up. Shit, I even at one point did a song that Kendrick was on with this rapper out of Kansas City. Somehow got a Kendrick feature right before he blew up, and
Wow.
I even worked, just mixing. I didn't meet Kendrick. I wasn't there, but just mixing wise, I did a song that Kendrick was, Anyway, so I think most people in my position, especially people, aspiring producers and stuff, would have went really hard, like hitting everybody up, saying, "Look at the work I'm doing. Let me do your work," and tried to connect with more bigger and better artists and try and get more fans and more money and blah, blah, blah. I think that most people would have chased more. For me, the more that I chase is being more of myself and being more of a fulfilled artist that is fulfilling his artistic vision in life. If I've gained fans through these songs and artists that we've talked about. And it's like, now if I go on, like right now, musically, the vast majority of my music time is focused on this Belief Cycle project. And it's like, if working on that project loses every fan that I've made so far, and I have to completely start from scratch, which fortunately has not been the case because I've had Palmer Squares fans and Prob Cause fans and stuff like that tell me that, through them, they've become my fan and they're along for the ride for this Belief Cycle thing and stuff. So I'm really grateful to those people. But if I lost everybody and all of my income as a producer and as an engineer over choosing to do what satisfies me more artistically, I would take that route. And so that's really what has it kind of looking like I'm moving backwards. Because to be completely honest, as a producer, I think I probably am moving backwards. I was probably more buzzing as a producer years ago. In 2013, I was in talks with labels and I was pitching beat ideas for major label artists and stuff, which didn't go too far, seeing as like I said, I was only just then getting into the process of regularly making beats. But I had major label A&Rs in my email asking me for beats for their major artists and stuff. And so yeah, it is a little in reverse, but like I said, it's not the notoriety or the money or any of that stuff. Trust me, I want the stuff that I'm making currently to go as far as it possibly could. I would love to be some huge superstar over it or to even have any fan base for it whatsoever. But it's if it's true to me and the other people that I'm collaborating with, if the authenticity is there, and the excitement for me, is there, then if it fails on every other front, it's still a success to me. So right now with the Belief Cycle, I'm writing the best songs I've ever written. I'm super excited about it. I'm making it with one of my best friends and someone whose talent I'm very excited about, collaborating with people I'm excited about. And, these are some of my favorite songs now. And if that goes nowhere, and if my public perception as a musician and a producer is that I'm not where I used to be, or that, I used to work with bigger names and now I don't, or that oh man, he fell off completely. If that's the public perception in exchange for making art that satisfies my soul, then I'm willing to make that sacrifice.
Wow, that's awesome. It seems like the belief cycle is kind of the next wave in your career, or I guess where you're heading. Um,
Trying to be.
could you tell me a little about that name and I guess just the band in
Yeah.
general?
Well, the belief cycle comes from a Tony Robbins book. It's sometimes called the success cycle. So I'm really dorkily into like nonfiction, like, positivity guru books and stuff, which is like, uh, people can clown that industry. And I totally get it because, they do, it's like a gym membership, which is like a gym makes their money by, they sell as many memberships as they can, knowing that most people aren't going to get their ass to the gym. So, they make their money on the people that don't come. And then there's the top tier of people that actually do show up and get in shape and are about it. And that's kind of how this, the industry of selling self-development and positivity goes, is like they're selling it to everybody they can, but there is a, a certain percentage of people like myself that do take their advice and do have our lives changed. Like reading books like that has changed my life. So the belief cycle, or it's actually more often he refers to it as the success cycle, is a concept that it's like there's a visual of it. Like if you Google image the belief cycle, you'll get pictures of us and you'll get pictures of the belief cycle concept. And that was part of the idea of the name too, is I wanted people, the only thing, if you Google the belief cycle, you're going to get us and you're going to get this concept that I'm about to describe. And I'm happy for people to find both. So the visualization of it is a circle with 4 points on it. And the first point is belief. The second is potential, then on to action, then on to results. And because it's a circle, you're back at belief. So the concept is you believe you can do something. So you start there. Believing that you can do it gives you potential. That's the next step. Having potential gives you power to take action, or what Tony Robbins would call massive action. Like really well thought out, well planned action. And then when you take massive action, you get good results. And when you get good results, next time, now you believe more. And so the cycle just keeps feeding back into itself. Every time you put belief into it and you take action, you get good results. And when you get good results, you believe more and more in what you're doing. So that concept started to change my life. And I wanted to make my new band venture built on that concept, which is like, however this goes, we believe we can do it. And when we believe we can do it, we'll take action. And when we take action, we get good results and we believe more. I also like it because it's cool because the reverse is true. Because if you put shitty belief into the first step of the process, then you have low potential. And low potential, you're not going to take much action. And when you take weak action, you get bad results. And then you're back to the beginning and you're like, well, I did this effort and I got shitty results in return. So now I believe less. So I like that duality of it too, that it can work for you or against you. So that's where the belief cycle name and concept came from. And there's, I write plenty of songs about like chicks and shit like that. But there's also a core where we're lyrically founded in, positive ideas and, like, listen, like I'll talk about drugs, sex and rock and roll too. Like those songs are in our lexicon as well. But we want the basis of it to be, the feel good basis of, of overcoming adversity in your struggles and becoming a better person and a better, more authentic version of yourself. And so that's why it made, I wanted to come from that lyrical standpoint and that concept. So that's why the belief cycle really worked as a title. So what it is, it's sometimes we have other members perform with us. When we get back into performing this year, we're hoping to, actually get more of a live band set up, just have like a drummer, a bass player, and us. But the core is a duo of myself and on vocals and production and bass and guitar and keys, and my partner Ryan Marquez, who's, like I said, one of my closest friends in my life, and he's an incredible keys player, and he also plays bass, and also as of late has been helping me with song concepts lyrically. So and he's actually been doing some vocals with me as well. So yeah, that's the lineup, is those two, but mainly my vocals and lyrics and production, with collaborating with Ryan Marquez on that, and that's why it's called what it is, and that's what we're trying to do. It is the Belief Cycle. The band is a vehicle for the concept of the belief cycle to come to life, come to fruition within our lives. And every time that we've taken a lap around the belief cycle, where we've done something, that we believed in, and we took the action and we got the results, it's worked out and it's gotten better every time. So we've been doing a lot of things in the background, because we kind of had some stuff going, and then we kind of took several months where we kind of, like I said, in the public eye, we kind of fell off, but we're about to come back, and we've been doing a lot of stuff behind the scenes, and we have a ton of momentum driving us right now, and we're going to keep that rolling and do some ambitious things, and we're actually going to share them to hopefully anybody listening, and as wide of an audience as we can, starting this summer.
That's awesome, and I think it's a deceptively powerful message. I think positivity has become so corny in like the mainstream that people just discount it.
I know. Yeah, that's like how I was having the kind of asterisk to saying that I read all those books and stuff. But I understand if it can be corny and whatever. And it is, in a sense. I mean, there's something weird and corny about getting up in front of the world and saying, I have something that I'm trying to say, and it is positive, and but I'm like hopefully an edgier side of positivity, which is, some of these positivity gurus are really like super clean, and like like, to be clear, like, I believe that positive outlook will absolutely change your life. It's transformed my life. We could get more into it, but like, I have a very deep, dark history with depression my entire life, and embracing a positive lifestyle has transformed my ability to deal with that, and my ability to almost have that be a non-factor in my life at this point. So I preach positively, absolutely, but like, listen, I also love me some drugs and some sex, and like, I'm not, I'm definitely still cool with all that stuff. It's not, don't conflate it, for me, don't conflate it with like religiosity or anything. Like, I'm still into the, some stuff that is for some of these positivity gurus, and certainly for religions and stuff, not the wave. So, but I think, just having that outlook, I understand if it looks corny, but man, like, you don't have to stop, you don't have to stop a lot of the things that you're doing. You don't have to stop the fun stuff. You just have to stop the stuff that's getting in your own way and sabotaging yourself. But man, positivity, music and positivity, and specifically marrying the two, has changed my life, has saved my life. Like, I've been in places in my life that at the end of the day, like, the idea of like suicide is, it's nothing. I could never do it, because even, you take your pain and you pass it off to the world around you when you take yourself off of this planet. So hope anybody that ever listens to me and ever thinks about something like suicide would, if I can have any impact, if someone's listening right now and has or does think about suicide, if I can have any impact on you, I hope that you reconsider that for sure. But I have thought about it before in the past, and what music made me feel so deeply inside of me, and then years later, what combining that with positivity made me feel inside of me. It's like at the darkest times, the effect that music could have on me showed me, it made me feel so alive, and it made me feel that there is so much beauty in this life. And that made me, and this is the initial seed, the very initial seeds of feel good music as a sound, is what I'm talking about right here, where it was like, being a young guy, having some issues, being locked up in my room, listening to CDs on repeat. And that's really when I took on the mission of, I was like, the way that this affects me right now, and the way that this shows me the beauty of life and how alive we can be, and the way, and the way that I know that there are other people out there listening to this same album and having a connection to it. And to me, that connects us, even if we don't know each other personally or we never meet each other. It's like being connected through this music connects us. And I wanted to create that connection for people with my own music. And I used to say, and I stopped saying it because I've been let known that I accomplished it. That if in this musical journey I connect with one person, on deep enough of a level that music has affected me, then like I've won and I've succeeded. And I've had more than one person tell me that that music that I have been a part of has affected them, whether it's a song that I directly wrote or something I produced for Palmer Squares, or something that I wrote helped give them more meaning in their lives. Some have even said save their lives, turn them away from things like ideas like suicide and stuff. So now the goal is to do that on a larger scale. That's also part of the mission behind my production style, and now the belief cycle, is to connect the like-minded. And that's, I'm not as good with social media as I should be. I need to get more consistent and whatever, but like any of my social media usage that I do, the intention is all about connecting those of us that love music and love, the same music. Like if you love, Palmer Squares music, that's just a fan base that hits me up a lot, that I communicate with a lot. And like I said, they're also converting into my fans and the Belief Cycle fans. And I thank everyone that's given that a chance or will give that a chance. But I want to connect these people, and, because now we can not only connect over the idea that we're all listening to this stuff, but we can connect, and directly have a conversation. I don't know, this interview won't be out before it, but just, tomorrow night, hopefully it goes well, because I'm just throwing it together super last minute, like a day's notice. But I had some people that found out that I'm in St. Louis now, that, hit me up in the DMs and stuff, and were like, I'd love to meet you and whatever. And I was like, well, let's put together a meetup. I got this bar I like to go to. I'll make a little flyer and put it like, let's try and get any fans in the St. Louis and Southern Illinois area to come hang out. So, now it's the positivity and the positivity of music. I mean, even if music isn't specifically positive based, like the lyrical content and whatever, like to me, feel good music is about it's just about how it makes you feel. And you know, if you feel it deeply, like feel it can be a sad song. Like if a sad song makes you deeply feel something, to me, that's feel good music because like it worked your feelings. And so yeah, I'm just trying to connect with people over that feeling. And now these days that we have social media and stuff, and you know, people like Palmer Squares and Prob Cause touring successfully and stuff, where sometimes I can hop on and go meet the fans face to face that way, you know, and now meeting them face to face in my current city, and hopefully, you know, in the not too distant future, doing my own tours with the Belief Cycle and meeting people that way. Um, it's just, but yeah, it's all about connection. So I think that positivity, if we focus on it as a little more broadly, as, you know, a connectivity between people, and as like a thing that I just think music is inherently positive. Like I said, like if you're listening to like a Slipknot or some shit and they're talking about who knows what, some crazy shit, and it sounds aggressive and whatever, it's like if that really resonates with you in a special way, like that's positive to me. So I think that music is inherently positive, and so I think connecting over that is a way to be positive in a non corny fashion. And you know what, like if it is corny to you, then you know, to each their own. Like hopefully you'll come around, and if not, like that's cool. I hope you find whatever you're looking for if positivity is not your thing.
Mm-hmm. I don't personally find it corny at all. I just think so many people have said those things. It's become so cliche, like believe in yourself or
Yeah.
try. But those things are so
Yeah.
profound in a way. Anderson
Well,
Paak
yeah.
kind of recently said the same thing. He was like, I was doing this music shit for so long and no one told me all I had to do was try. Like, that was it. Like, and keep going. That was it.
I mean, yeah, man, really. Like, and that's another thing too, is like if you are someone who's making a pursuit like we make, whether it's music or, you know, whether you're working on a podcast or, you know, whatever endeavor, it could be some career based thing or whatever that has nothing to do with art. Although, you know, side note, I would argue that anything that you do with passion, that where you bring your best to the table, and it is your intention to do your best and serve people, I think, and create experiences, I think that's art. If you wait tables and you make sure that when you're serving a table of people that they're getting a great experience out of their meal, that you're creating art to me. But whatever that endeavor is, like yes, it's as simple as trying. Now, it gets way not simple from there because you're going to hit a million roadblocks, and it gets harder and harder the further along you get. You know, it's like the further you get, you just get bigger hurdles to jump, but you're a little more equipped to do so, and on and on.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, I mean, it really is as little as, you know, people like myself and Palmer Squares, and you know the people that are way further along than we are, you know, like your Chance the Rappers or whatever, like your top tier people. Like the only difference between us and maybe people out there that could be listening that are, you know, doing some sort of artistic endeavor and feel like it's not going anywhere, or feel like it's not going where they want it to go. The only difference between us and you is like we made the decision that no matter what happens, no matter how painful it is, no matter what it costs us financially and emotionally, that we were going to pursue this. And, you know, like I don't give a fuck. Like I'm getting old. I'm in my early 30s. I mean, I don't feel old, but you know, it's like obviously the music industry from the, you know, the mainstream standpoint, mainstream success is, you know, very much they glorify youth and they want to find the next youngest, hottest singer, and your Justin Bieber type archetype and stuff. So being 32 years old and being I would love to be a mainstream musician, but I'm kind of aged out for what they're looking for. But sorry, I lost myself for a second on
Got
that.
real existential there for a minute.
On that, yeah, I got a little existential for a second. Remind me where we just were.
You were sort of just talking about
oh yeah, trying.
Oh yeah.
Right. So yeah, I'm like, I don't give a fuck if I'm 45. Like, and that's when people start really seriously liking my music. Like, I don't give a fuck. Like, I have made the commitment since I was 14 years old to pursue this to the grave. So I'm almost 20 years in, and like, I won't stop, and I hope everybody listening will join me on the journey right now. But if it takes me another 10 years to convince you to listen, like, that's fine. I'll be here doing it. And if you want to hop on then, because I'm not going to stop, and we're not going to stop. And the beauty of the modern music industry is that there's all these people out here with millions of fans that you haven't heard of. I mean, the game is so splintered. You still have your top tier mainstream people, but then underneath them, we got people that are quote unquote underground that have millions of fans. I mean, so I think that at the end of the day, the work will speak for itself, the work of the art itself and the work put behind the art. And if the work keeps getting done, you can do it on your own terms. So I believe that in my mid 30s, the belief cycle is there's going to be a fan base for that I can start touring behind and stuff. And, I will have gotten there by just not stopping.
So looking back at like the outset of your music career, do you remember releasing your first song? I feel like a lot of people have trouble, I guess, kickstarting their own belief cycle to really start doing things.
Yeah, I actually, I'm very fresh with this because a few weeks ago, maybe a month ago or something now, I just made like a little Facebook and Instagram post because it was super late because I totally forgot about it. A belated Instagram post in November 2018 was the 10-year anniversary of my first album release, which was just under my name, Drew Mantia, and is still on streaming sites. So I made a little post like, hey, if you want to hear the roots, like, it goes back as far as 10 years. But I did. I had some stuff before that, some demos and stuff as far back as like 2006. And I mean, crap that I made in high school too, but like stuff that I was using as like demos for venues and whatever, and like put up on MySpace. That's, what the thing
MySpace,
was.
what's that?
Yeah, right. I mean, MySpace at the time was a social network kind of similar to what Facebook would go.
I'm just messing around. I know what MySpace is.
Yeah. But I mean, like, there's legit some people that could be listening that might not. That's like
very valid.
I mean, they may have heard it, but not known. Like, there was a time, and some of you might have been there, but like MySpace was significant. And they had band pages where you could upload like 3 or 4 of your songs or something. And at the time, that was huge, and it was free. And, at the time, the technology at the time to, say if you wanted to have a website of your own and stream your music from it, like, that was a complicated endeavor. Like, you had to have like hire like a real deal, like, web developer to build something like that. And, so the first stuff, was on MySpace. The first stuff that was really like released and given a shot at, that was the album in 2018. And I had, a backing from this label for it. So we had a little bit of a budget to try and promote it. And we had, but at the time, it was mostly CDs. We sold a couple hundred CDs, which I thought was just absolute garbage. But being so deep in the industry now and knowing the kind of sales that indie startup artists make, for an artist to sell 200 physical copies of their first project is, that's not something that's not negligible.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had most people that I've produced and engineered for haven't had that kind of success with their own albums, and fortunately some have, and way more success than that, but most don't get that much success. So anyway, it started there. It was actually, and still is, it was on iTunes and stuff. I was the first person that I knew in real life that had something released on iTunes. Because back then it wasn't, now everybody has a mixtape on iTunes, but at the time it wasn't a thing that like you saw indie artists doing. That was maybe like the biggest thing that this little indie label helped me do, is they helped me get my music on streaming platforms. And then it wasn't even streaming. There was no streaming platforms. It was, you bought the song digitally,
Mm-hmm.
iTunes. And I think maybe back then Amazon might have had their music thing or something,
like Napster, stuff like that.
Napster was trying to integrate like a pay model.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was on the pay version of Napster and stuff like that. But that's where I started. I'm trying to think, because I feel like you kind of frame that a little bit of for the people that are struggling to get started.
Mm-hmm.
So that's not like a good place to start as far as get a label and then work from there. That's not
get a deal, and then
that's not the move. That's not the move you want. And I did not have any kind of crazy deal or anything, but they did they funded studio time to the tune of tens of thousands of dollars, and helped me get some shows and press, and but nothing huge, but locally. So it was definitely a hookup. But the only way to do it is to do it, is to do something. You have so many options these days for how to release something, where somebody can just play it right off their phone instantly. So to do it, you got to do it. You make something that you stand behind, that you believe is great, and you'll evolve. It's not the best you're ever going to be, but if you just keep waiting for your best shit ever, then you're just, a lot of people. So maybe there's the first piece of advice, if this is kind of an advice answer, which is you got to give up the perfectionism and start doing stuff. And yeah, you might put your first songs out and they might suck ass and you might embarrass yourself, and you just got to go again. Hopefully when try to release something that doesn't suck when you put your first foot forward. But you know what? If you put something out and it sucks, you're not done forever. Keep trying, and you'll suck less the more you do it. I still make stuff that sucks plenty often. I just keep going and make, and the ideas that I want you people to hear, those are the ideas that stuck out to me, that I'm like, okay, this is cool and represents me and has something to say. And I think other people will like it, and this is worth releasing. So, try not to obsess over it being perfect, try and do the best that you're capable of now. And then just try and get people to hear it. And, at first that's just ask your friends and family to listen to it and stuff like that, because you can't force people. And, if you're just, you need to toss it up on the internet. But if all you're going to do is toss it up on the internet, it's a 1 in a million chance that that's going to bring you some big direct results. More likely is you know, you're going to put stuff up on the internet for years and you're going to tell people about it and you're going to do shows and it's going to be hard to get people to come at first. And then eventually it'll catch on. And I'm right there with you. I'm at the start of a new process with this belief cycle project. It doesn't matter if I did LSD by Prob Cause and Chance the Rapper or any other notable shit that I've done. Like, none of that matters when it comes to I've got a new band and we're putting out our first songs. Like, we're back at the beginning, just trying to get people to listen, trying to get people to book us on shows, trying to get people to come to those shows. So you just have to do it. You have to do it. And once you start doing it, if you want to make it, once you start doing it, you got to do it consistently. Just never stop, where like the music that I'm making, like it's already a big deal to some people and it's going to be a big deal to a lot more people because I've got, hopefully, I'm only a third of the way into my life and I'm going to be making music, until the very end. So there's a lot of time there's just a lot of time left for me to pick up fans. So maybe that's the next advice. So don't be a perfectionist and be patient. And I only found my patience in the last couple of years due to these books I was talking about earlier that kind of inspired me. But in this, find the patience where it's like, maybe you start when you're like 16, you're like, I'm going to be a young superstar. And then it's like, you're 22 and you're fucking 6 years in and you're like, what the fuck? It's like, you got another 5 years to go and you could be popping. And it's like, that might hurt to hear, but it's like, the people that you look up to, they put years and years into this shit. I mean, even the people, I was talking about how the mainstream industry, glorifies youth and whatever. And it's, you get your people like your Justin Biebers and stuff. But like, dude, Justin Bieber was making music since he was a fucking little kid. It's like, I got nothing but respect for somebody like that. And it's like, when you see somebody and think they're like an overnight success, when Justin Bieber popped when he was 15, he probably already had 10 years invested in the game. It's like, so some of us had the good fortune of starting earlier, and some of us, like a Chance the Rapper or something, or just those people are just like these old souls that are like just one in a million people that are like 19 years old and they just fucking get it. It's like I'm in my 30s and I'm still figuring out how to get it. Chance got it when he was fucking 17 or something. So it's just like, be patient. There might be you got a lot of years left. It might not come in the time frame that you want, but it will come in due time and it will come with work. And so, I mean, that's the approach that I take even, right now, like after Feel Good Music 2, like after promoting that some, like we're going to start releasing more Belief Cycle tracks. We actually released a song with Prob Cause last week that's doing pretty decent called Purpose, Prob Cause and the Belief Cycle, where I actually just let him do all the vocals and, just sat back and worked instrumentally. But, now we're going to be releasing, consistently and going from there. So yeah, that's my approach and that's what I would recommend. I think you can't go wrong with being patient and just doing the work.
I like your brand of positivity. It's really like refreshing. It's like not just positive, but also like a realist approach.
Yeah, thank you.
It seems like that community you've built just through that mentality is kind of reared its head in a lot of your projects. Like Feel Good Music 1 had a lot of the same, like similar features, and then Feel Good Music 2, the feature list is awesome. It's a lot of familiar faces from like the Palmer Squares, Tiny Chain Gang, Stankface. So it's like Willis Chillin, Maestro Locke, Paige Alyssa, Ross Augusta, the Belief Cycle's on there.
Yeah. Yeah, I did
Fanta
some
Black Soul,
vocal.
all sorts of people. Could you tell me a little bit about that project?
Yeah, I mean, so I guess a quick recap on Feel Good Music 1 was the original Feel Good Music. The idea was actually like that was going to be my third Drew Mantia album. So although some of it was made specifically for that project, but most of the instrumentals you hear and some of the hooks on Feel Good Music 1, that was like my album as a singer. And when I just decided to put it down, so I had all those cool beats. And that's when every people that I was producing at the time, I started getting them, showing them those instrumentals and hooks and whatever. So songs like Good Day with Palmer Squares, that was originally, I wrote that hook. That was me singing. Looking back on it, I mean, Ross is my homie, Ross Augusta, who sang that hook in my place. Looking back on it, I wish I would have just left myself on the hook and used my voice. But, it wasn't, at the time, it was my intention to hang up the singing. So, so yeah, it became, and it was even called Feel Good Music. It was Drew Mantia Feel Good Music, but it was my vocals. Anyway, so that was came out in 2015 and has its fans, and I've had people hit me up ever since, that they love it and they want to hear more. And so I felt like I was going to do, more, but I didn't have specific plans for it. But it's just like over the last, years since the first one, as a producer and stuff, you have songs that you make that don't get released and whatever. So, and that's never, and that's rarely, and it's often not because the song isn't good. It's just when you're making a project, you want everything to gel, and sometimes even the good songs don't gel. Like there's good songs that I wanted to put on Feel Good Music too. Like I have a single that I did with Saba as like a one-off single called Down. You can find that on all the streaming stores. Like I wanted to put that on there because like, why the hell, it's never been on a project, it was just a single. It's like, why the hell would I not, like Saba's blowing up right now. Why would I not want to put his name and voice on my album and promote behind that? But it's like, at the end of the day, it just didn't fit the same as everything else. So anyway, so it kind of just started. I had songs piling up that were songs that I really liked that the artist that I made it with like had no plans to release because it just didn't fit on their project. So it kind of just started with that. I hope like that doesn't give you guys a negative connotation that reflects poorly on it, that it started with like scraps from other projects. But honestly, like that was the initial jumpstart, was just like, I have these ideas, and because of my production style, not when I produce for other artists, it's like I'm trying to do their vision. So it's like not 100% of the time does it have to be a feel good vibe, because I have made dark songs and stuff too. But anyway, I had stuff sitting around that had a feel good vibe that was either like, I like this, even though it didn't make their album, or I see where I could take this to turn it into something good. Mm-hmm. So it started with some tracks that were like that. And then, from there, it's like, okay, I have a foundation. Now, then you start making tracks that are specifically for that project. So I ended up with like 15 potential tracks. As Jordan knows, because he got the preview, and as you now know, if you're listening to this interview and have checked out the project, I ended up cutting it down to 7 songs, which, might sound short, but that was just the stuff that gelled the most for me. And I have released like a lot of the good stuff that should have been on there. Like I wanted to put the Saba song out there. That's out there. It's called Down, Drew Mantia and Saba. This song Purpose with the Belief Cycle and Proud Cause. We just released that as a single instead of putting it on the album. I actually wanted to put it on the album, but because of the, Feel Good Music 2 is a Drew Mantia album. We released this single purpose as Prob Cause and the Belief Cycle, and the stores don't let you put the same song under different artist names. So I just wasn't able to put it on Feel Good Music 2 as a Drew Mantia song featuring Prob Cause and also release it as Prob Cause and the Belief Cycle. So some of it was technical stuff like that. And then 4 of the songs I put out as a like pre-EP. So if you checked the album out and if you checked out Feel Good Music 2 and you checked out Feel Good Music 1 and you want even more, check out Purpose by the Belief Cycle and Prob Cause. Check out Down, Drew Mantia and Saba. And also on the Drew Mantia streaming services, there's an EP called FGM2 Prelude. And that has 4 of the songs that I liked, but just didn't think fit with my final vision for Feel Good Music 2. So if you do feel like I slighted you with 7 tracks, I just listed 6 additional tracks. So if you want your Feel Good Music 2 to be 13? If you want it to be 13 tracks, tack those songs onto the playlist because those were all original, Feel Good Music 2 contenders. But anyway, so yeah, the genesis of the album was just kind of like people were asking me about it. It was just like the right time happens when like enough people were asking me about it and like I could see a vision of the song starting to come together and I was like, all right, let's do this. And I also felt like with coming up with the Belief Cycle and whatever, I thought that it would be a cool way to blend what I'm doing with the Belief Cycle with what I've done with Palmer Squares and Stankface Records and TCG and Prop Cause and stuff like that, with what I'm doing with the Belief Cycle and even give, the Belief Cycle some shine where we produced some of the stuff instead of just me and I did some vocals and whatever. So that was kind of part of it too, to be honest. I was like, well, now that I have these songs coming together and people want it, and I can kind of use this as a vehicle to expose the Belief Cycle, like, let's do this shit. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it kind of started by accident. It just, it fell together.
Mm-hmm. I actually didn't know about the Feel Good Music 2 Prelude. That's a good idea.
Yeah, that's out right now. I mean, I didn't promote it too hard. There were just like people, that I was starting to promote it and they were like, oh damn, I can't wait. I was like, well, if you can't wait, here's a little bonus, here's 4 songs to hold you over. And I also, like I said, had the intention that once the album's out, like if anybody gives me flack for only doing 7 tracks, then I can be like, well, here's another 4 and here's a couple other singles that at one point were on the track list. You can put them all together and have yourself a hour-long album. I just wanted to keep it like an easy, like 25 to 30-minute listen. I think it's like 30 minutes long. I forget where it ended up, but I like that vibe right now of, the shorter album.
Mm-hmm. Plus, everyone knows 7 tracks is only an album if like Kanye releases it, and then it's
right. Well, yeah. Well, he hacked the system because when you upload something to like be distributed on Spotify and everything, they consider 7 tracks or more an album, and Spotify, you want to get caught up in their algorithms, so that your music gets fed to people that haven't heard it, and gets fed to, your pre-existing fans. So hopefully everybody hears it. If you release something that's classified as just an EP or a single on Spotify, their algorithm does not push those to as much people as it does if you release something that's designated an album. So it's like it's hacking the system. So if you can do 7 songs, you can, instead of like 14, you have better quality control because you're like, I'm just gonna put the fucking bangers on here, and the stores will promote it like it's an album. And in this day and age, like 25 to 30 minutes is perfect for me. Like, I don't need an album that anymore for me. I don't need an album that, is an hour or something because, I rarely find an album where I like all the songs these days. So it's like I'm obsessed with like 5 Khalid songs right now. The pop singer, R&B singer Khalid.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's like 5 songs on his new album that I've been listening on fucking repeat that I am obsessed with. But there's 12 songs on the album that I don't like.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, I guess you'd have to say that's like my favorite album right now because of the amount of play I'm giving 5 of those songs. But I
Mm-hmm.
don't really care at all about the other 12. I gave them a shot and didn't like them much.
Yeah.
So it's like, to me, like I'm thinking of myself as a listener, like 7 songs, 25 to 30 minutes, like that's a perfect listen for me personally. So I was just also like, my process for mastering an album and figuring out the final track list is like, I just listen to it a fuckload. I
Mm-hmm.
load it up as, I'll bounce it, which bounce is just like when you take your recording session file and you turn it into like a listenable MP3 or WAV file. I will bounce the whole project as just one long track so I can't skip around. Put that on my phone, and then I'm driving around listening to it. I'm working out listening to it. I'm taking walks listening to it. And I'm just listening to it with the intention of, can I listen to this from beginning to end and not feel like bored or like, fuck, is this over yet? Or I'm not sure about this part, like that's the intention. So it's like for feel good music, when I the bare minimum was 7 tracks, like, cause I was like, I need it to be an album. So, that was the minimum options. And it's like, when I was listening to it and just assessing what flowed, when I cut it down lean enough to like these 7 tracks that I picked and put them in the order that I put it in, that was something that I was like, yes, like I want to listen to this front and back, like front to back, like every time. So that's like, yeah, so I'm on the 7 song wave. Like also Junkyard Samurai that I produced, Prob Cause and the Palmer Squares. That was 7 songs, which was also an accident. Like we did that before Kanye started doing the 7 song releases. So that was just like a happy accident. As far as like we had the track list finalized already before he started doing that stuff. So that was a happy accident. And we're like, well, shit, I guess 7 song albums are a thing now. So that's kind of just, I fuck with that as a listener. So like the Belief Cycle, we're focusing on singles for a while, but like if we start doing any projects, we're probably going to shoot for 7 songs. And yeah, so that's the wave I'm on.
Yeah. Now just to transition to some, I guess, well, I wouldn't call them throwaway questions, but some more lighthearted questions. Do you think type beats, like, I guess, cheapen the role of producers in music? I was listening the other day to, I think it was like a Chance the Rapper, Kyle type beat, and there was no mention of the producer. You know what I mean?
Right. Type beats. It's not an approach I have taken, but I've also not really taken the approach. These guys doing type beats or gals are trying to get exposure by any means necessary, because they're like, if I just get people to hear my beats enough by any means necessary, eventually they'll start to like my beats, then they'll start to like me, then I'll start to get fame, then I'll start to get money. And that is the intention behind that. And like, no judgment if you are a listener that makes beats and is doing the type beat thing. I think, however you think you're going to get yours. Just for me, personally, it's not a route I've gone, because like I said, I started off more of, aspiring to be like, I love a producer like a George Martin or Max Martin, who's like, a modern day guru, or for the past 25 years. If you don't know who Max Martin is, I mean, he's a super radio pop producer. So if you're not into that, you might not love him, but he's the 3rd best selling songwriter of all time after Lennon and McCartney. Um, this Swedish guy, Max Martin. Um, anyhow, but I wanted to be a producer like that, where you get in the room and create with the artist, and I still want to do that, and I'm actually probably doing that more than ever. But I am also, like I said, cranking out the beats, but a lot of them end up being for me and just like my close collaborators. Like I do have a little beat store at drewmantia.com. Like if you want to hop on one of my beats, like I got some cheapy ones as little as like $30 that are still good beats. Like I'm not putting garbage up there. At drewmantia.com, I offer like 10 bubble. I'm offering like 10 public beats at a time that you can buy on the cheap. So like I am a little bit doing that, but I'm not like hustling though a beat store or like I would maybe consider the type beat thing more if I was more trying to be like a beat store producer trying to do that. But that's just not really for me artistically where it's at. But I have no disrespect for the idea of the type beat thing. Do I think that it's like a great winning strategy? I don't know, probably not. But there's not many strategies in this music game that are proven to work. And if you feel like that strategy could work for you, or if it is, I mean, it absolutely has worked for some producers. So it's like, if that works, like more power to you. Yeah, and yeah, I hear what you're saying, where it's like they're putting like a tight beat out there, but like you're not even seeing what the producer's name is. They're just using like another artist or producer's name because they just think that like traffic is going to be the thing. And I don't disagree with that. I mean, I don't know. At times I wish that I was a little more by any means necessary, because like I hopefully illustrated earlier, like I stay pretty artistically pure, and like I could have way more money and popularity if I ever was willing to ride waves and ride trends and stuff like that. That's just not me. I'm also like a little bit of a contrarian, so like underground is a good is a good fit for me. Kind of. I mean, I love pop. I've always loved pop music. I mean, I told you what my first favorite song was. I love pop music. I like radio pop music. I listen to the new Ariana Grande album and shit. Like I'm there. Like I'm into that stuff. But yeah. But I'm like not personally willing to get there by any means necessary, and that holds me back. So if these producers can get somewhere doing tight beats, then more power to them, and like congratulations if they get further than me.
Yeah, so I guess a fair outlook. It's hard to argue with results, but artistic integrity is important too. Um,
Yeah.
so I was actually starting on my review of your album, and I kind of came to a point where I was like, this production is really lost on bad speakers. I was listening with like a nice set of studio monitors, and I know a lot of people have different opinions about like, I don't know, self-proclaimed audiophiles. We'll talk about how you need this $1 million preamp and all sorts of other equipment. I guess what's your view on that? Do you think there's really, I guess, where's the point of diminishing returns in that sort of like audiophile space?
I would say I'm not an audiophile. I would love it if everybody heard my music on the best speakers possible. I'm mixing it in a studio with decent speakers and a fucking subwoofer and everything. So it's like I'm getting the full experience, and it sounds really fucking good with, I make sure that the bass is booming and shit is clear and energetic. But at the same time, like I spent time mixing on it out of my laptop speakers, and I have this plugin where you can stream it through your phone speaker. I spent time mixing it through the iPhone speaker. I spent time mixing it on iPhone earbuds, on some other headphones and stuff, listening to it in cars. So it's like, I would hope that it still sounds decent on some wax speakers. And then, yeah, I mean, yeah, you're gonna get the highest experience on the best system, but you know, wherever you've got to listen to it, I hope that the energy and the authenticity comes across, you know, whether you're like listening off your phone speaker or you've got some amazing audio system that you listen on. I don't really care about that stuff as long as the emotion is delivered. And that's really all I'm focusing on, making the song and in mixing the song. Like, because to me, if the technical stuff is off, that can interfere with the emotional. And I think that something that is technically well mixed and well produced, you do a good job. Like if you do a good enough job, you get out of the way of the recording and people just hear the music. That's really the best case scenario, is you don't even notice what you're listening on. You're just caught up in that music. Mm-hmm. Someone told me about like having style. I'm not like very stylish with clothes by any means, but I dress a little better than I have in the past. I used to be real dumpy, and I can't remember where I heard it from. It was just from like a YouTube video or something, like trying to learn about style or something. But a quote that really stuck with me is this person said, when you wear crappy clothes, people see your clothes. And when you wear stylish clothes, people see you. And that really stuck with me, because I was like, yeah, the fuck do I care? Like, I can still be comfortable wearing clothes that are a little more stylish. And then, you know, people will see me as more normal, because when I wear these dumpy, ratty clothes, people see me as a certain way and they don't even get to perceiving me as me, you know? So I think the best audio work is like undetectable. I mean, I would love for people to hear this and be like, oh, the mix is so cool and shit. I'd love that. But like, at the end of the day, wherever you're listening, I just hope that you get caught up in it and caught up in the emotion. So yeah, man, I'm not an audiophile. I listen to shit on my phone speaker. I listen to shit on crappy earbuds. I also have nice earbuds and headphones. I also have nice speakers. It's like, I listen to shit any way it comes, you know?
Mm-hmm. So Feel Good Music 2 is out on April 20th. I'm sure for no particular reason. Where can people find it, and where can people follow you?
Yeah, no particular reason. It's true. Yeah, you can find it wherever you stream. Maybe not, I don't think, I might put selected songs on SoundCloud. I'm not super into SoundCloud these days. It used to be a really big platform for us, but the momentum has really died, and you know, I'm getting better traction. I'm getting better traction on the platforms like Spotify and Apple Music that pay us. So it's like, I know SoundCloud is now working on they have like a monetization thing for artists. Anyway, that's a whole other thing. I'm messing up my plug by getting into other shit. So let me just do my plug. Feel Good Music 2, it's out. Spotify, Apple Music, Google Play, any of those streaming services you might subscribe to. YouTube, it's on YouTube. Just maybe not SoundCloud. So please listen to it there. If you like it, I'd love to have a conversation about it. Hit me up. You know, you can DMing me on Instagram is the easiest way to have a conversation with me. Facebook, I'm slower, but you could hit me up on there. And if you do like it, please also share it. Tell some other people. Share it on your social media. If you really do like it enough, it would mean a lot to me. You know, do like the you can share what you're listening to on Spotify. Hit the share button. You can put it in your Instagram stories. Share screenshots that you're listening to it. Whatever you're willing to do, as well as tell your friends in real life and whatever that would recommend it to them if they would like it. Yeah, so that's where it is. Yeah, please listen to it and share it. And I'm really grateful and appreciate the shit out of you if you do it. And my social media is all just at Drew Mantia, my name without a space, DrewMantia. There's also we're starting to build up the Belief Cycle accounts, so also on Instagram and Facebook at the Belief Cycle with no spaces is where you can find that stuff if you're willing to give that a listen, as well as the Belief Cycle on streaming platforms. And if you haven't listened to us, then you'll hear some of us on Feel Good Music too, and hopefully that'll make you a fan of that stuff as well.
All right. Well, for the listener at home, me and Drew have some more content in the works, so stay tuned for that. But that was Drew Mantia on MTMscratch. Thanks for being on.
Man, thank you.
That was Drew Mantia on MTMscratch. You can find Drew's social media information in the description, and Feel Good Music 2 will be available on most major streaming platforms April 20th. I'm happy to announce the Feel Good Music Cypher on MTMscratch. This is going to be our first cypher on the page. Drew will be providing an unused beat from his upcoming project, Feel Good Music 2, for the cypher. So check back in for updates on Facebook, SoundCloud, YouTube, and Twitter. For music, memes, and more, thanks for listening, and until next time, I'm Jordan Burt. Take it easy.